she missed the interview that would have changed her life to help a stranger in the rain. She thought she'd thrown away her future for a man who didn't even know her name. But 3 days later, billionaire Theodore Heath died with her name on his lips. The twist? He hadn't just been waiting for a hero. He'd been watching her family for 42 years, waiting for her to make the same mistake her grandmother did. Detroit, Michigan, March 20th, 2012. The day that would break and rebuild Maya Johnson's world. 17 years old, senior at Cass Technical High School. Grade point average, 4.0. Class rank, 3rd. SAT score, 1,490. Full scholarship interview at Stanford University scheduled for 3 p.m. sharp. Maya had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Not just the past few months, her entire life. Every report card, every late night studying, every sacrifice. It all led to this one afternoon. Her grandmother, Rose Johnson, had worked as a housekeeper for 40 years to make sure Maya could have opportunities she never had. Rose never finished high school, got pregnant at 16, raised Maya's mother alone, then raised Maya when her mother died of cancer when Maya was 3 years old. Rose was 73 now. Her knees ached from decades of scrubbing floors. Her hands were twisted with arthritis from wringing out mops and folding endless loads of laundry. She had cleaned the homes of Detroit's wealthy families for 4 decades, watched their children grow up in houses with more bathrooms than Rose had rooms in her apartment. But Rose never complained, never spoke with bitterness. She saved every extra dollar, worked double shifts on holidays, took every housekeeping job she could find, all so Maya could have a different life. That morning, Maya wore her only interview suit, navy blue, purchased from the Goodwill on Gratiot Avenue for $19.99. She'd pressed it so many times, the fabric shined like new. Her grandmother had braided her hair the night before, fingers moving with the practiced precision of a woman who had braided hair in the dark for 4 decades. Each braid was perfect, each section even. It had taken 2 hours, but Rose never rushed, never complained about her aching hands. When Maya looked in the mirror that morning, she saw more than her own reflection. She saw her grandmother's dreams, her mother's lost potential, the weight of 2 generations resting on her shoulders. You show them who you are, baby. You show them what we're made of. You walk in there with your head high. You remember that you're a Johnson. And Johnsons don't back down. Johnsons don't give up. You hear me? Yes, Grandma. I hear you. Rose kissed her granddaughter's forehead, straightened her collar one last time, pressed a $20 bill into her palm for lunch and emergencies. I'm so proud of you, baby. Your mama would be so proud. You're going to change the world. Maya carried those words like armor as she boarded the number 16 bus at 1:15 p.m. She had timed this route 17 times over the past month. 45 minutes to downtown, then transferred to the number 3. Another 22 minutes to the Marriott Renaissance Center, where Stanford's regional admissions officer, Dr. Patricia Anthony, was conducting back-to-back interviews with Michigan's top students. Maya had researched Dr. Anthony, read her published papers, memorized her background. Stanford School of Education, specialist in educational equity, passionate about first-generation college students. Maya had prepared answers to every possible question, practiced her handshake, rehearsed her elevator pitch about why she wanted to study social policy and education reform. Everything was planned. Everything was perfect. Everything was on schedule. Until the rain started. The sky had been gray all morning, but Maya hadn't worried. She had an umbrella. She had planned for weather. What she hadn't planned for was the kind of rain that only Detroit knows how to deliver. The kind that comes down in sheets so thick you can't see 3 feet in front of you. The kind that floods the streets in minutes and turns intersections into lakes. At 2:07 p.m., the sky opened up. Not a drizzle, not a shower, a biblical deluge. A Detroit downpour that turned Woodward Avenue into a river. The bus was running 3 minutes behind schedule. Maya checked her phone, checked the transit app, recalculated. She could still make it. Barely, but she could make it. And that's when she saw him. The old man stood at the bus stop at the corner of Woodward and Grand Boulevard. Alone. Completely soaked. Water running down his face. His clothes plastered to his thin frame. He was white. Probably in his 80s. Maybe older. Wearing a threadbare gray overcoat that had once been expensive. You could tell from the cut and the buttons, but was now just old and worn. His hands shook violently as he tried to hold on to a wooden walking cane that kept slipping on the wet pavement. Every time he tried to adjust his grip, the cane would slide and he would almost fall. He had no umbrella, no rain jacket, no protection at all from the storm. His white hair was plastered to his skull. His face was pale. His lips had a bluish tint that Maya recognized from her CPR training as a sign of dangerous cold. The bus pulled up. The doors hissed open with that familiar pneumatic sound. People pushed past him like he was invisible. A businessman in an expensive suit, talking loudly on his phone, didn't even glance at the old man. A mother with 2 young children, struggling with a stroller and shopping bags, maneuvered around him without a word. A teenager with headphones, lost in his music, nearly knocked into him. Everyone rushed on, shaking off rain, claiming the dry seats, complaining about the weather. Not one person stopped. Not one person looked back. The old man tried to climb the steps, gripped the handrail with his left hand, tried to lift his right foot. His whole body shook with the effort. His foot slipped on the wet rubber step. He grabbed the handrail tighter, his knuckles white with strain. His cane clattered to the ground, bouncing once before rolling into a puddle. Maya was already on the bus, already had her transfer ticket in her hand, already running 10 minutes behind schedule because of the rain delays. If she missed this connection, she would miss the number 3. If she missed the number 3, she would miss her interview. Stanford only gave 1 shot, 1 interview. No makeups, no exceptions. That's what the email had said. Very clearly. She looked at the old man struggling on the steps, then at her watch. 2:12 p.m. The bus driver, a heavy-set man with tired eyes and a voice worn down by years of dealing with Detroit traffic, spoke over the intercom. Boarding complete. Doors closing in 5 seconds. Maya looked around the bus. Surely someone would help. Surely someone else would see what she was seeing. An elderly man, soaked to the bone, struggling to board, clearly in distress, possibly hypothermic. But everyone was looking down, at their phones, at their laps, at anything but the old man. That's when Maya heard her grandmother's voice in her head. Not the words from that morning about showing them who she was. Different words, older words, words that had been spoken in their kitchen 1,000 times over the years. Words that Rose had said to Maya since she was old enough to understand them. Baby, there are 2 kinds of people in this world. People who see and people who look away. The world is built on people looking away. Built on people being too busy, too rushed, too focused on their own problems to notice when someone needs help. That's how cruelty survives. Not because people are evil, but because good people decide they don't have time. Don't you ever be one of them. Don't you ever be too busy to see somebody suffering. You hear me? Never. Maya pushed back through the closing doors. Wait, please! Sir, let me help you! She jumped off the bus, splashed into a puddle that soaked through her good interview shoes, the only pair of dress shoes she owned. Retrieved his cane from the dirty water, took his arm gently but firmly, the way she had learned when volunteering at the senior center during her sophomore year. I've got you, sir. I've got you. We're going to take this step by step, nice and slow. There's no rush. That's it. One step. Good. Now another one. Perfect. The old man's eyes met hers, pale blue, watery, red-rimmed from the cold and the rain. But there was something else in those eyes. Recognition, maybe. Gratitude, definitely. He tried to speak, but his voice was so weak, drowned out by the hammering rain and the rumble of the bus engine. What did you say, sir? Thank you, he whispered. Thank you. Together, they climbed the 3 steps onto the bus. Maya guided him carefully, keeping her hand under his elbow, making sure he was steady. She led him to the handicapped seat right behind the driver, made sure he was sitting securely, handed him his cane, now dripping with dirty water, pulled off her own jacket and draped it over his shoulders because he was shaking so badly. The bus driver looked at her with a mixture of irritation and impatience. You getting on or off, miss? I got a schedule to keep. Maya looked at her watch. 2:15 p.m. The next bus wouldn't come for another 23 minutes, according to the schedule. But with the rain, it could be 30, 40, maybe longer. She would never make the transfer, never make her interview, never get her shot at Stanford. The old man was fumbling with his wallet, his hands shaking so badly he couldn't get his fingers into the pocket of his wet coat. Couldn't pull out his bus pass. People behind them in the aisle were sighing with impatience, making annoyed sounds. One man muttered something about holding up the whole bus. Maya pulled out her transfer ticket, the one she needed to get to the number 3 bus, the one that was her path to Stanford. She handed it to the driver without hesitation. He can use mine. I'll catch the next one. The bus driver looked at her for a long moment. Something in his expression softened. He nodded, took the ticket. The old man looked up at Maya. His pale blue eyes were filled with tears now, though whether from gratitude or just the cold, Maya couldn't tell. Young lady, you're going to be late for something important. I can tell. You're dressed for something important. Please, don't miss it because of me. Maya smiled. The kind of smile her grandmother wore when she came home exhausted from cleaning houses, feet swollen, back aching, but still asked about Maya's day before she even took off her coat. The kind of smile that said kindness wasn't a burden, it was a privilege. Nothing's more important than making sure you get home safe, sir. Nothing. The doors closed with a hydraulic hiss. The bus pulled away from the curb, tires splashing through the flooded street. Maya stood in the rain, her good interview suit getting soaked, watching the bus disappear down Woodward Avenue. She looked down at her phone, opened her email, read the message from Stanford one more time. Very clearly stated, interviews scheduled in 15-minute increments. No exceptions for tardiness. Missing your scheduled interview will result in forfeiture of scholarship consideration. She had just sacrificed her entire future for a stranger whose name she didn't even know. Maya didn't cry. Not on the bus ride home, sitting in wet clothes that clung to her skin. Not when she walked through the door of their small apartment at 3:45 p.m., dripping water onto the worn linoleum. Not when her grandmother looked up from the stove where she was making Maya's favorite dinner, celebration chicken and greens, and saw her granddaughter's face. "What happened, baby?" Maya told her everything, every detail. The old man at the bus stop, the rain, the struggle, the choice between helping him and making her interview, the transfer ticket, the long wait for the next bus, the email she had sent to Stanford from her phone sitting at the bus stop, explaining what happened and begging for another chance. She waited for disappointment to cross her grandmother's face, for anger, for the weight of 40 years of sacrifice to come crashing down on her shoulders, for Rose to say what any reasonable person would say. "You threw away Stanford for a stranger? Are you out of your mind?" Instead, her grandmother pulled her into the tightest embrace Maya had ever felt. Rose's thin arms wrapped around her, strong despite the arthritis, warm despite the cold, wet clothes. "You did right, baby. You did exactly right." "But Grandma, that was Stanford. That was everything we worked for, everything you worked for, all those years, all those houses you cleaned, all those double shifts. I threw it all away." Rose Johnson held her granddaughter's face in her weathered hands. Hands that had scrubbed floors and folded laundry and washed dishes and made beds and sacrificed everything so this girl could have a chance at something better. "Listen to me, Maya Elizabeth Johnson. You listen to me good. I didn't work 40 years so you could get into a fancy school. I worked 40 years so you would know the difference between what's valuable and what's important. A degree from Stanford is valuable. I won't lie to you about that. But knowing when to help somebody who needs you, knowing when to put another person's life before your own ambition, that's important. You just proved you know that difference. That's worth more than any degree from any school, anywhere in the world. You hear me?" "But Grandma, all those years you worked," "And I'd work them all over again to raise a granddaughter who stops to help an old man in the rain. That's the woman I wanted you to be. That's the woman your mama would have wanted you to be. You made me proud today, baby. So proud." But late that night, after her grandmother fell asleep in the bedroom they shared, Maya allowed herself to break. She sat on the cold bathroom floor, the only place she could cry without waking Rose, and let the tears flow. Silent tears for the future she had just lost, for the dream of Stanford, for the chance to make her grandmother's sacrifices mean something tangible, something the world would recognize. She opened her laptop, checked her email. Nothing from Stanford yet. She refreshed. Nothing. Refreshed again. Still nothing. At 11:47 p.m., the response came. She knew from the subject line what it would say. Professional, polite, final. "Dear Miss Johnson, we appreciate you taking the time to explain your circumstances. While we admire your commitment to helping others, our interview schedule is fixed by policy. We are unable to accommodate rescheduling requests. We wish you the best in your future endeavors. Sincerely, Stanford University Office of Undergraduate Admission." Maya read it 3 times, each time hoping the words would somehow change. They didn't. She deleted the email. Then she cried harder. Not for herself, she told herself, for her grandmother, for all those years, all that work, all that hope. The next day, she applied to Wayne State University. A good school. A very good school, actually. Local. Affordable with financial aid and work study. Many of her friends from Cass Tech were going there. She could live at home, help take care of her grandmother, save money. Not Stanford, but it would do. Life moved forward the way life does. She graduated third in her class, gave a speech at graduation about service and sacrifice, started at Wayne State in the fall. Pre-law with a focus on social justice. Got a part-time job at a coffee shop on Woodward to help with expenses. Came home every weekend to cook dinner with her grandmother and help with groceries. The old man on the bus became a story they told sometimes. The day Maya chose kindness over ambition. The day she proved she was a real Johnson. A nice story. An inspiring story. Nothing more. Until 6 months later, when the letter arrived. September 14th, 2012. Maya came home from her shift at the coffee shop at 6:30 p.m. to find her grandmother sitting at the kitchen table. Not cooking, not watching her favorite game show on the small television, just sitting, staring at a thick cream-colored envelope. The envelope itself was unusual. Heavy paper, the expensive kind. The return address printed in raised letters. Heath and Associates, Attorneys at Law. 112 Beacon Street, Boston, Massachusetts. 02116. Neither of them knew anyone in Boston. Neither of them had ever been to Boston. Grandma? What's that? Rose looked up. Her face had gone pale. Her hands gripped the edge of the table like she might fall if she let go. It's addressed to you, baby. Came in the mail today. Been sitting here looking at it for 2 hours. Couldn't bring myself to open it. Maya picked up the envelope, felt the weight of it, turned it over. Her name and address written in formal script. Miss Maya Elizabeth Johnson. She opened it carefully. Her hands shook as she unfolded the letter inside. Official letterhead, law firm language, legal terminology. But 3 sentences made her knees buckle, made the room spin, made her grab the back of a chair for support. We regret to inform you of the passing of Theodore James Heath on March 23, 2012. Mr. Heath has named you, Maya Elizabeth Johnson, as a beneficiary in his last will and testament. Please contact our office at your earliest convenience to discuss the terms of your inheritance. Time sensitive. Please respond within 30 days. Maya read it 3 times. The name meant nothing to her. Theodore James Heath. She'd never heard it before. Had no idea who this person was. Grandma, do we know a Theodore Heath? Rose Johnson's face had gone from pale to ashen. Her hands were shaking now, too. She stood up slowly, like every movement hurt. Walked to her bedroom without saying a word. Maya heard her opening the closet, moving things around. Then she came back, carrying a small wooden box. The kind you might keep jewelry in. Worn. Old. The kind of box that had been hidden for a very long time. Rose set the box on the table, opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were letters, dozens of them, maybe hundreds, all addressed to Miss Rose Johnson in careful handwriting. All from Theodore J. Heath. All with return addresses from different places. Grosse Pointe, Michigan. Cambridge, Massachusetts. New York, New York. San Francisco, California. The postmarks dated back decades. The oldest letter was from December 1970, 42 years ago. Grandma, what is this? Who is Theodore Heath? Rose sat down heavily. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of 4 decades of silence, of secrets kept, of pain buried. Baby, I need to tell you about the summer of 1970. I was 21 years old, fresh out of high school. No money for college. Your great-grandmother was sick with the cancer. I needed to work. needed money for her medicine, for the rent, for food. So I took a job as a housekeeper for a family in Grosse Pointe. The Heath family. Rose's voice was steady, but her eyes were distant, looking at a past Maya had never known existed. Grosse Pointe. You know what that is, baby? That's where the richest people in Michigan live. In Detroit, black folks cleaned the houses. In Grosse Pointe, we cleaned the mansions. The Heath family. Theodore was just a boy then, 12 years old. Skinny little white kid with thick glasses and a stutter so bad he could barely get through a sentence. His father, Mr. Charles Heath, was a businessman, owned factories, auto parts supplier, made a fortune off the auto industry. But he was cold as ice, mean. The kind of man who thought his money made him better than everyone else. Theodore's mother, Mrs. Eleanor Heath, she was never around, always in her room. Medications, they called it. Pills for her nerves, pills to sleep, pills to wake up. That's what they told people, but I knew different. I cleaned her room. I saw the bottles. She was addicted, depressed, lost in her own mind. Theodore was alone in that big house. They had a cook, a gardener, a driver, but nobody talked to that boy. Nobody cared about him. The other staff, they did their jobs and left. Didn't want to get too close. Didn't want to care too much. It wasn't professional, they said. But that boy, Maya, that boy was so lonely, so hungry for someone to just see him, to notice he existed, to care if he was sad or happy or scared. So I saw him. I talked to him while I cleaned his room, helped him with his homework while I dusted the bookshelves, made sure he ate breakfast before school because nobody else did. His father left for work before dawn. His mother never came out of her room before noon. The cook made food but didn't check if anyone ate it. It wasn't my job. But somebody needed to care. Somebody needed to make that boy feel like he mattered. Maya listened, her grandmother's words painting a picture she had never imagined. A world of wealth and loneliness. Of a black woman and a white boy finding connection across impossible divides. One day, Theodore's father came home early from work. Found me in Theodore's room, sitting on his bed, helping him with algebra homework. Theodore was crying because he didn't understand the problems and his teacher had yelled at him for stuttering when he tried to answer a question. Mr. Heath saw us, saw me sitting on his son's bed, saw Theodore with tears on his face, and he lost his mind. He started screaming, accusing me of things, terrible things, said a black woman had no business being alone with his son, said I was probably stealing, said who knows what I was really doing in that room, said black people couldn't be trusted. Rose's hands clenched into fists at the memory. He fired me on the spot, right there in front of Theodore. Called me names I won't repeat. Then he called the police, told them I had stolen his wife's diamond necklace, said he had evidence, said he would have me arrested. I spent 3 days in jail, baby. 3 days. They questioned me for hours, searched my apartment, my car, looked through everything I owned. Finally found the necklace in Mrs. Heath's medicine cabinet. She'd put it there herself and forgotten because of all the pills. The police let me go. Said they were sorry for the misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. Like that word could erase 3 days of my life. 3 days of humiliation. But the damage was done. I had a record now. An arrest record. Didn't matter that the charges were dropped. Mr. Heath made sure every family in Grosse Pointe knew about it. Said I was a thief. That I couldn't be trusted. that people should watch their valuables around me. I couldn't get another housekeeping job in Grosse Pointe. Had to work 2, 3 jobs at a time just to survive. Cleaning offices at night, working at a laundromat, whatever I could find. For 40 years, baby. 40 years, I scrubbed floors and cleaned toilets and worked myself to the bone. All because of that man's lies. Maya felt anger rising in her chest like a fire, hot and righteous and overwhelming. So why did Theodore leave you anything? He was part of that family. He was his father's son. Rose held up one of the letters, the oldest one. The paper was yellowed with age. The handwriting was shaky, like a child's. Because he never forgot. He never stopped trying to make it right. Read this. The letter was dated December 10th, 1972. Theodore would have been 14. Maya read it aloud, her voice shaking. Dear Miss Rose, I know I'm just a kid, and you probably won't believe me. But what my father did to you was wrong. So wrong. You were the only person who was ever nice to me. The only person who ever made me feel like I wasn't stupid because I stuttered. The only person who cared if I was okay. I've been saving my allowance. It's not much, $37. But I want you to have it. It's all I have right now. But I'm going to be rich someday. Richer than my father. I'm going to make something of myself, and when I am rich, I'm going to make this right. I'm going to fix what he broke. I promise you, Miss Rose. I promise. Theodore. Maya looked up, tears streaming down her face. Did he? Did he make it right? Rose pulled out more letters. One from every year, tracking Theodore's life like chapters in a book. High school graduation, college at MIT, business school at Harvard, his first company, his second, his investments, his empire growing year by year. And every year, without fail, a letter to Rose, updating her, thanking her, promising he would make it right. Then Rose pulled out a letter from 2005, 7 years ago. Maya was 10 years old then, 4th grade. Dear Miss Rose, I am now a wealthy man, very wealthy. Forbes magazine estimates my net worth at $1.7 billion. I've made my fortune in technology investments and real estate. I want to honor my promise. Please allow me to provide for you and your family. I know you have a granddaughter now, Maya. She's 10 years old. I've been keeping track through a private investigator I hired years ago to make sure you were okay. Not in a creepy way, I hope you understand. But I needed to know you were safe. That you were okay after what my father did to you. Maya is brilliant. I've seen her report cards through the investigator. Straight A's. So smart. So kind from what I hear. Let me pay for her education. Let me send her to the best schools. Let me make this right. Rose's voice cracked. I told him no. Wrote him back and told him absolutely not. I didn't want his guilt money. I didn't want handouts. I wanted you to earn what you got. I wanted you to know the value of hard work. To know that nothing worth having comes easy. I didn't want you to be one of those kids who had everything handed to them and never learned what struggle means. But he never stopped writing, never stopped checking on us, never stopped asking if there was anything he could do. Rose pulled out the final letter in the box, dated March 15th, 2012. Just 5 days before Maya helped the old man on the bus. And when you helped him on that bus, baby, he knew. He knew you were my granddaughter before you even told him your name. Maya's mind reeled. The old man on the bus, The stranger with the cane. That was Theodore Heath, the billionaire? He died 3 days later, Rose whispered. Heart attack. But before he died, he changed his will one last time. Left everything to us. The law office of Heath & Associates in Boston was everything Maya expected when she thought of old money and power. Marble floors polished to a mirror shine. Dark wood paneling that looked like it had been there for 100 years. Leather chairs worn soft by generations of clients. Oil paintings of stern-looking men in suits. The smell of old books and expensive cologne. Maya and Rose sat in the conference room on the 7th floor, across from attorney Jonathan Carlyle, a man in his mid-60s with silver hair, perfectly styled, and kind blue eyes that reminded Maya of Theodore. Miss Johnson, Miss Rose, thank you for making the trip to Boston. I know this must be overwhelming. Please, let me explain. He opened a thick folder, pulled out several documents, legal papers, financial statements, pages and pages of numbers that didn't make sense to Maya. Theodore Heath's estate is valued at approximately $3.2 billion. He was a brilliant investor. Started his first company at 22, sold it for $40 million at 25. Used that money to invest in technology startups in Silicon Valley, made a fortune. Then invested in real estate, made another fortune. He lived modestly, spent little, invested wisely. By the time he died, he was one of the wealthiest men in America. But almost nobody knew it. He was a recluse in his later years. No wife, no children, no living relatives except some distant cousins he never spoke to. Maya's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. The bulk of his estate, $2.8 billion, is designated for a charitable foundation he established in his will, the Rose Johnson Foundation for Educational Equity. It will provide full scholarships to students from underserved communities, first-generation college students, students whose parents work in service industries, students who understand what it means to struggle. The foundation will operate in perpetuity. Rose gasped. Her hand flew to her mouth. Tears spilled down her weathered cheeks. The attorney continued, his voice gentle. However, he has left specific bequests to you both. Miss Rose, you are to receive $50 million outright, with the specific provision in the will that you, quote, never have to scrub another floor or clean another toilet or work another day for the rest of your life, unquote. Those were his exact words. And Maya, you are named as the primary trustee of the foundation. You will oversee all scholarship decisions, all program development, all expansion plans. Additionally, you have been left a personal trust fund of $100 million for your own use. You also inherit his estate in Martha's Vineyard, his art collection, including 3 original Picassos and 2 Monets, his collection of first edition books, and this. He pulled out a small leather journal, worn, carried in a pocket for decades. Theodore kept a journal. He wrote in it every day for 70 years, thousands of pages. This is the final entry, written the night of March 22nd, 2012, the night before he died. He wanted you to have it. Maya opened the journal with trembling hands. The handwriting was shaky but legible, the writing of a man who knew his time was running out. It read, March 22nd, 2012. Today I met Rose's granddaughter. I didn't plan it, hadn't intended to test her. I was simply trying to get home from the doctor when the rain started. I could barely stand. My hands wouldn't work properly. The doctor said my heart is failing. Days, maybe a week at most. I should have called my driver, but I wanted to ride the bus one more time. Wanted to see the city one more time like a regular person. Everyone walked past me at that bus stop, rushed around me like I was invisible, like I didn't exist. The way people rushed past Rose 42 years ago when my father humiliated her. The way people pretend not to see suffering because acknowledging it would require them to do something, to be inconvenienced, to care. Then this young woman appeared. She was clearly in a hurry, dressed for something important, nice suit, pressed carefully, hair done beautifully. She kept checking her watch, but she stopped. She came back. She helped me onto that bus, gave me her transfer ticket, missed whatever important thing she was rushing to. I asked her name. Maya Johnson, she said. I knew immediately. Rose's granddaughter. The girl I'd been watching grow up through investigator reports and school records. Straight-A student, Stanford interview today at 3 p.m. I knew what she was sacrificing. She sacrificed her future for a stranger. Just like her grandmother sacrificed her reputation and her career for a lonely boy. The pattern holds true. Kindness is inherited, not in blood, but in teaching, in example. In the quiet moments when no one is watching and there's no reward except knowing you did right. I'm 84 years old. The doctor says my heart will give out any day now. But I've lived long enough to see the circle close. Rose showed me what kindness looked like when I had nothing, when I was invisible. Maya showed me that Rose's legacy is alive and well, that the lessons she taught her granddaughter are the same lessons she taught me all those years ago. To see people, to help, to care even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. I'm changing my will tonight. Everything I built because Rose believed a stuttering, neglected, lonely boy deserved to be seen, deserved to be valued. Now that fortune will go to ensuring that every child like I was, every worker like Rose was, gets seen too, gets valued, gets a chance. Maya will run the foundation. Not because she helped me on that bus, but because she proved she has the one quality money can't buy and schools can't teach. The quality that matters more than intelligence or ambition or drive. She knows that people matter more than appointments, more than opportunities, more than success. She knows that who you are is determined by what you do when nobody's watching, when there's no benefit to yourself, when helping someone might cost you everything. I spent 70 years trying to repay a debt to Rose. Sent her money. She sent it back. Offered to pay for Maya's education. She refused. She said the only payment she wanted was for me to be a good man, to use my wealth to help people who couldn't help themselves, to never forget where I came from, to never become like my father. I hope I have been that man. I hope the foundation does more good than my father's cruelty did harm. I hope Maya understands that this isn't a reward. It's a responsibility. The same responsibility Rose carried every day of her life. The responsibility to see people, to help, to care, to never walk past someone who needs you, even when you're in a hurry, even when it costs you something, especially when it costs you something. Thank you, Rose, for saving my life twice. Once when I was a boy who needed to be seen, and once when you raised a granddaughter who still believes that strangers deserve kindness, that old men deserve dignity, that human beings matter more than ambition. I can die in peace now. The circle is complete. Theodore. Maya closed the journal. Tears streamed down her face. She looked at her grandmother, who was crying too. 2 women, 3 generations apart in age, connected by a single act of kindness that had echoed across 42 years. The attorney cleared his throat gently. There's one more thing. Theodore left a video message. For both of you. Would you like to see it? The video was filmed in Theodore's study in his home in Martha's Vineyard. Maya would later visit this room, would sit in the same chair, would feel his presence in the books on the shelves. But now, seeing it for the first time on the lawyer's computer screen, it took her breath away. Theodore sat in a wingback leather chair, wearing a simple cardigan over a button-down shirt. He looked fragile, but alert. His pale blue eyes were clear. This was recorded 2 days before Maya helped him onto the bus. 2 days before his heart attack. His voice was thin but clear. Rose, if you're watching this, I'm gone. And I hope you can forgive me for not respecting your wishes while I was alive. You told me you didn't want my money, that you would make your own way, that you wanted Maya to earn her success through hard work and struggle, not inheritance and privilege. I respected that. I stopped offering. But I couldn't let my fortune die with me when it could do so much good, when it could honor what you did for me. You saved my life, Rose. Not with money, with dignity. You were the only person in that house who treated me like a human being, like I mattered. My father was a cruel man. He destroyed you to protect his pride, to maintain his power, to keep the world ordered the way he thought it should be. I've spent my whole life trying to atone for his sins, trying to make up for what he took from you. But I realized something. Atonement isn't about money. It's about making sure the kindness you showed me keeps rippling forward, that it doesn't stop with me. That's why the foundation bears your name, so that 1 million kids will know that a Black woman named Rose Johnson changed the world by being kind to one lonely white boy. So that people will remember that kindness crosses every divide, every barrier, every prejudice, that seeing people, truly seeing them, is the most revolutionary act there is. He turned slightly, as if addressing Maya directly. And Maya, I don't know if we'll meet. The doctors tell me I don't have much time. But I know who you are. I've watched you grow from a distance. Not like a stalker, I hope you understand. But like a guardian angel. Or maybe more like a grateful debtor, keeping tabs on his creditor's family. I wanted to make sure Rose's sacrifice, her years of hard work, were going to the right person. That the woman who saved me was pouring her wisdom into someone worthy. You're brilliant. You're kind. You're everything I hoped you would be. The foundation is yours now. Not because you're Rose's granddaughter, though that connection matters, but because you understand what Rose understood. What I learned from her all those years ago. That wealth means nothing if you hoard it. That success means nothing if you achieve it by stepping over people who need help. That the only legacy worth leaving is measured in how many lives you touch, how many people you see, how many strangers you stop to help, even when you're in a hurry. Use this money to see people, Maya, the way your grandmother saw me. Build a world where no one is invisible, where no one is too busy to help, where kindness isn't rare, it's common, where the Rose Johnsons of the world are celebrated, not exploited, where the Theodore Heath are seen, not neglected, where humanity matters more than profit. He paused, smiled softly. It was the smile of a man at peace, I was a poor boy once. Not in money, my father was wealthy. But in love, in attention, in worth, in human connection. Rose made me rich in the ways that matter. Rich in kindness, rich in dignity, rich in the knowledge that I was valued. Now I'm trusting you to do the same for others, to make them rich in the ways money can't touch. Don't let me down, Maya. Make my life mean something. Make my death count for something. Take this fortune built on technology and investments and real estate and turn it into love, into opportunity, into hope. The video ended. The conference room was silent, except for the sound of Rose's quiet weeping and Maya's trembling breaths. Maya held her grandmother's hand. Two women, 3 generations apart in age. One black, one white, man connecting them across decades. Connected by a single choice made in a moment of crisis. To see, to help, to care. The world would never be the same. The Rose Johnson Foundation headquarters stood in downtown Detroit on Woodward Avenue. Not in some gleaming suburb, not in some wealthy enclave. Right in the heart of the city that raised both Rose and Maya. The building was beautiful. Modern glass and steel, yes, but designed to honor the community. Local artists' murals covered the lobby walls. The furniture was made by Detroit craftspeople. Every decision was made with intention, with respect. 5 years after Theodore's death, the foundation had awarded full scholarships to 12,000 students across the country, built 6 community centers in underserved neighborhoods, funded job training programs for adults transitioning out of service industry work, provided microloans to small businesses owned by women and people of color, established housing assistance for families on the edge of homelessness. Maya, now 22, ran it all. She had deferred Stanford when they came calling after the news broke, after Forbes ran a story about the mysterious heiress who gave up a scholarship to help a dying billionaire. I have more important work to do, she told them politely. The foundation is my education now. Rose had retired from housekeeping the day the inheritance was finalized. She spent her days volunteering at the foundation, reading to kids in the after-school program, sharing her story with anyone who would listen, making sure everyone knew that kindness was a choice, not a transaction, that it cost something, that it should cost something. On the 5th anniversary of Theodore's death, they held a ceremony, unveiling a statue in the foundation's courtyard. Hundreds of people attended. Scholarship recipients, community leaders, families helped by the foundation's programs, local politicians, national media. The statue depicted 3 figures cast in bronze. A young black woman in a housekeeper's uniform, one hand extended toward a young white boy with glasses and a book. Between them, connected across time, an older black woman helping an old white man onto a bus, her hand under his elbow, his cane in her other hand. The plaque at the base read, "Kindness is not inherited through blood, but through example. Rose Johnson, Theodore Heath, Maya Johnson." 3 people, 2 generations, 1 lesson that echoes through time. See people. Help them. Never look away. Never be too busy. Never forget that we're all connected. Maya stood at the podium, looking out at hundreds of faces, young and old, black and white and brown, rich and poor, all brought together by a story of kindness. She spoke without notes, her voice clear and strong. 5 years ago, I made a choice. I chose to help a stranger instead of going to a scholarship interview. I thought I was throwing away my future. I thought I was disappointing my grandmother, who had sacrificed everything for me. Turns out, I was stepping into my real future. I was honoring my grandmother in the deepest way possible. My grandmother taught me that there are two kinds of people: people who see and people who look away. Theodore Heath was seen by my grandmother when he was invisible. A lonely, neglected boy in a house full of money but empty of love. And because she saw him, because she showed him kindness when no one else would, he built an empire. Not for himself, but for everyone who comes after. For every child who needs to be seen. For every worker who deserves dignity. For every person society has decided doesn't matter. This foundation isn't about charity. It's about debt. It's about paying forward what was given to us. We owe each other. That's what Theodore understood. When someone helps you, you don't pay them back. You can't. The debt is too big, too profound. You pay it forward. You help the next person, and the next, until kindness becomes the inheritance we all leave behind. She paused, looked at her grandmother in the front row. Rose was crying, but smiling. So proud. Grandma, you worked 40 years so I could have opportunities. But the real inheritance you gave me wasn't money or education or even the chance at Stanford. It was the ability to see people, to stop, to help, even when I'm in a hurry, even when it costs me something. You taught me that who we are is defined not by what we achieve, but by who we help along the way. Theodore left us billions, but you left me something more valuable. You left me the knowledge that a single moment of kindness can change everything, can save a life, can build an empire, can create a foundation that will help millions. That's the real inheritance. That's the only wealth that matters. The crowd stood, applauded, but Maya wasn't finished. So here's my promise. To my grandmother, to Theodore's memory, to everyone watching, to every person who will be helped by this foundation in the years to come. I will never look away. I will see people. I will help them. And I will make sure this foundation does the same. For generations. Forever. Until the day comes when kindness isn't remarkable. When stopping to help isn't unusual. When seeing people is just what we do. That's the world we're building. One scholarship, one family, one act of kindness at a time. Because kindness isn't something you do once and check off your list. It's something you become. It's the only inheritance that matters. And it's the only wealth that grows when you give it away. 10 years later, September 20th, 2022. A rainy afternoon in Detroit. A different bus stop. A different storm. But the same test. A young man stood in the rain at the corner of Woodward and Grand Boulevard. 19 years old. Sophomore at Wayne State University, studying engineering. Internship interview at Ford Motor Company in 30 minutes. First-generation college student. Rose Johnson Foundation scholarship recipient. Suit purchased from the foundation's Career Closet, a program Maya had started to help students dress for success. The bus pulled up. Doors opened. People rushed on, shaking off rain, claiming seats. An elderly woman struggled at the steps, Hispanic, barely 5 feet tall, carrying grocery bags that were clearly too heavy for her. Her hands shook with age or illness or both. She wore a thin jacket that offered no protection from the downpour. The young man looked at his watch. 2:45 p.m. If he missed this bus, he would miss his interview. Ford only interviewed on campus once a semester. This was his shot. He looked at the woman, looked at his watch, made his choice. He stepped off the bus before the doors could close, splashed into a puddle, took the woman's grocery bags, offered her his arm. "Ma'am, let me help you. Take your time. We'll get you on safely." "Thank you, young man. But you're going to miss something important. I can see you're dressed for an interview." He smiled. The same smile Maya had worn 10 years earlier. The same smile Rose had worn for 40 years before that. My grandmother always told me, nothing's more important than making sure people get home safe. Nothing. The woman looked at him closely as he helped her up the steps. "Your grandmother sounds wise. What's her name?" "Maya Johnson." The woman's eyes widened with recognition. "The Maya Johnson? From the Rose Johnson Foundation?" "Yes, ma'am. She raised me after my parents passed. The foundation gave me a full scholarship, paid for everything, books, tuition, housing, even this suit I'm wearing. Changed my life." The woman smiled through tears. "That foundation paid for my daughter's college, too. She's a doctor now, working at Detroit Medical Center. Because of your grandmother. Because of what she built." The young man nodded, helped her into a seat, made sure her bags were secure. She always said, kindness is the only inheritance that matters. That we owe each other. That when someone helps you, you pay it forward. The bus pulled away. He stood in the rain, watching it disappear down Woodward Avenue. Missing his interview. Certain of his choice. Because 3 generations earlier, a woman named Rose had made the same choice. Had seen a lonely boy and decided he mattered. And that choice had rippled forward through time. Through Theodore. Through Maya. Through him. Through everyone the foundation had touched. The cycle continued. As it always would. As long as there were people willing to see. To stop. To help. To choose another person's need over their own ambition. Even when they were in a hurry. Especially when they were in a hurry. Because that's when it matters most. When it costs you something. When it's hard. When you have every reason to look away, but you choose to see anyway. That's when kindness becomes inheritance. That's when love becomes legacy. That's when a single moment on a rainy afternoon becomes forever.